let's ask the team members to introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Snegda, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Phoenix Group.
Hello, my name is Joaquin Martinez, and I'm the Chief Ethical Officer of Phoenix Group.
My name is Hannah Rivera. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer at Phoenix Group.
My name is Margarita Cinco, and I'm the Chief Legal Officer of Phoenix Group.
Okay, judges want to introduce themselves. Who do we have? We have Rob.
Yes. Hello, my name is Robert Beamer. I am the Executive Director of all of our corporate programs at Loyola Marymount University. So I oversee the Executive MBA, as well as our Executive Education suite of classes. I have a background in finance, several years as a financial advisor, investment advisor, broker-dealer. Before that, I studied theology and thought I was going to be a priest. So we can talk about that another day, but it's great to be here. I'm excited to hear about your presentation.
Hi, my name is Joe Vargas. I am a lawyer in private practice. I've been practicing for 20 years, have an undergraduate degree in accounting, work at a regional law firm out of the Los Angeles office, and I look forward to hearing your presentation.
My name is Tom Fain. I'm a retired securities lawyer and presently the chairman of an automobile museum. I'm asked to read this statement to you as a beginning. I know that you know this, but this is part of our protocol. So I'm going to go ahead and remind you of what the rules are. As part of this competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges. Please make sure everyone knows who you are and who they are before you begin. That statement always interested me, know who they are. You will have 25 minutes to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all three counts. During this time, you will not be interrupted. When you are finished, the judges may ask you questions for 10 or 15 minutes. During the Q&A, both you and the judges should stay in character. After the Q&A, the judges may give you feedback outside of the role playing. So with that said, let the teams begin at what I make as 11:09.
I want to thank you, the board of directors of WM, for being present today. We, Phoenix Group, come here to propose a consulting opportunity that can prove beneficial for WM in the short and the long run. My name is Joaquin Martinez, and I am the Chief Ethics Officer of Phoenix Group.
I'm Hannah Rivera. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer at Phoenix Group.
I'm Snegda Sama, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Phoenix Group.
I'm Margarita Cinco, and I'm the Chief Legal Officer at Phoenix Group.
We want to make clear that this project is for you, the recently rebranded sustainable company that is WM. We understand that being sustainable and ethical may only seem positive in the long run. However, we are here to show you that being a leader in innovation can also have substantial benefits in the short run if we continuously seek the most sustainable and profitable projects. So let's briefly summarize where WM stands today so we can meet you where you are. 2022 has been an incredibly crucial year for WM as it has undergone a process of rebranding from waste management to WM. In doing this, it has moved from regular landfills and fossil-driven transportation infrastructure into smart landfills that collect gas to power sustainable processes. No longer does WM present itself to individuals, communities, local governments, and businesses as any other waste management company. It is now the most ethical and sustainable option for the betterment of society, a great marketing advantage. However, we have identified a problem, and my colleague, our Chief Sustainability Officer, will now not only explain the problem, she will present our incrementally advantageous solution.
WM primarily uses recycling and landfills as means to handle their waste. However, there is an issue with landfills. Landfills are neither ethical, sustainable, nor profitable. There are many issues that landfills have. The primary issue is the methane production. Landfills account for 1/3 of the world's methane production, a powerful contributor to the climate crisis. You have made efforts, though, to collect the methane and use it as energy in a process known as landfill gas to energy. However, these efforts have not been completely successful. Only 51% of landfill gas is able to be collected to be used as renewable energy. Since methane is 85 times more potent of a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, methane is a powerful contributor to the climate crisis. Another issue that landfills have is that they require an immense amount of space. The average landfill is about 600 acres, and there are over 3,000 active landfills in the United States. So we are talking about millions of acres in land just required for landfills. It is estimated that in the next 5 years, 7 states will be running out of landfill space. That means you will need to transport the waste to greater distances to properly dispose of them, which will increase the financial cost of landfilling. Additionally, land prices are trending upwards, and the cost of buying space for landfills will become a financial burden for you. Landfills also create leachate, a toxic liquid that forms when the waste in landfills breaks down. And leachate is a pollutant. It seeps through the land into nearby water sources and pollutes the water sources of nearby communities. While you do have technology to capture the leachate, it is still a source of potential legal liability. And the last issue with landfills is that they are not effective at handling all sorts of waste. Waste such as tires, electronic equipment, construction and demolition waste, medical waste, liquids. Those are types of waste that cannot be handled by landfills, and you must use alternative methods to dispose of them properly. Now, you recognize that landfills are not completely effective, and you have attempted to use different methods to handle waste. One method you have tried is waste incineration. Waste incineration involves a process that involves drying down the waste and then burning it, and in doing so, creating energy. That energy is then used to power waste incineration plants, and the remaining energy can be sold. However, there are issues with waste incineration. All the carbon content of the waste being burned gets released as carbon dioxide. So waste incineration still contributes to the climate crisis. While carbon dioxide is less harmful than methane, it still negatively impacts the environment. More prominently, the issue with waste incineration is it has the potential to release toxic pollutants such as nitrogen oxides and sulfur dioxide, cancer-causing gases into the environment. These pollutants are actually reasons why it can be difficult for companies like yourself to actually build waste incinerations, because cities are not eager to have them nearby due to their pollutants. However, we have a solution for you: FASTOX gasification. FASTOX gasification is a gasification method to handle waste. This gasification method was developed by the California-based company Sierra Energy, and is a method to handle waste. We recommend using Sierra Energy's technology, licensing their technology, because we know Sierra Energy's technology works. Sierra Energy has actually built a gasification plant that uses FASTOX gasification in combination with the United States Department of Defense. They have built a gasification plant on the Army base Fort Hunter Leggett in California, and we know that their technology is an effective technology to gasify the waste. Now you may ask, what is FASTOX gasification? What does this process entail? FASTOX gasification involves taking the waste, injecting oxygen and steam at high temperatures of about 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and the waste then undergoes a chemical process converting it to synthetic gas, or syngas, and stone. With FASTOX gasification, 100% of the waste is converted to energy and stone. 90% becomes syngas, and the remaining 10% becomes inert stone. These are high-value end products. The stone can be used as construction aggregate material, and the syngas can be converted into a multitude of different products. It can be converted into electricity, renewable diesel, ethanol, hydrogen, and fertilizer. 20% of the syngas needs to be converted into electricity in order to continuously power the gasification plant, while the remaining 80% of the syngas can be converted into whatever end product you want and is a source of financial revenue. Now, we understand that the process of transitioning away from landfills and incineration to use gasification is a long process. It's a process that will take many years of capital investment and a lot of time in order to do that. That's why we recommend you start small. We recommend at first just trying it out. After licensing Sierra Energy's technology, we recommend that you retrofit one of your incineration plants to become a gasification plant at a low cost. In doing so, you'll be able to try out gasification and see that it works and see all the benefits. You will see that it is a source of financial revenue. It requires a little amount of space. It doesn't release toxic gases like methane, carbon dioxide, or pollutants like nitrogen oxides or sulfur dioxide into the environment. It can handle all sorts of waste and does not have any of the negative side effects that landfills and waste incinerators have. From there, we recommend retrofitting your remaining incineration plants to be retrofitted for gasification. And then from there, we recommend building new gasification plants in strategic locations near cities where large quantities of waste are generated. All of this, the end goal is that there should be little to no use of landfills as a means of waste management by WM. Only recycling and waste gas and fast box gasification should be used to handle waste. I will now turn the presentation over to our Chief Financial Officer, Snigdha, who will discuss the financial implications of our solution.
Thank you, Hannah. Of course, WM, I know that as with any business, the financial considerations are crucial to consider when making such a large transition. And I will show you that the move to gasification will prove financially beneficial to you. These are just some of the initial costs that will need to be incurred to make the shift to gasification and the long-term benefits that we will stand to gain from making such a shift. The first is that of the infrastructure required to manufacture syngas. It does have to be acknowledged that the cost of production of syngas include expensive machinery. However, WM already has incineration plants that are currently used to dispose of biohazard waste. This cost is not as high as it could have been. It is much easier to retrofit an existing plant than it is to build an entirely new one. Thus, WM Solutions is in a great place to make this shift. In fact, because the current incineration plants that we have produce gaseous byproducts that instead contribute to significant environmental damage, converting these byproducts to productive fuel sold on the free market can recoup some of the costs associated with this initial investment. Another fact we have to consider is that all the current trials of gasification have not attempted it at so high of a scale as to be profitable yet. A 2012 study in the Journal of Renewable and Sustainable Energy concluded that the unit cost of syngas would be lower than the market price of natural gas if the biogasification capacity level is selected higher than 230 nanometers cubed. The current production costs of syngas are so high because it is not produced at a high enough scale for it to be profitable. At the scale that a huge company like WM operates, this would be changed. By optimizing waste collection facility locations, we can produce syngas at a price that can outpace natural gas, an unsustainable and self-limited resource. Another challenge we must consider is that of the risk of predicting economic profitability. This is a concern that is warranted because of the mechanistic efficiency of natural gas versus that of syngas. Syngas is relatively less efficient, and thus companies may initially be reluctant to purchase syngas in favor of natural gas. However, we do have to consider that we only have enough fossil fuel to produce natural gas for 50 more years. The only sustainable and renewable alternative to natural gas is syngas, and thus we have reason to believe that WM can overcome this risk. Finally, we must consider the added expense that is of pre-treating the waste for gasification. Waste must be pre-treated to remove non-combustible materials and homogenized to minimize variations between batches. This is a cost not incurred with either incineration nor landfilling, but this pre-treatment cost is not so high as to outweigh the overall benefits of gasification. It only forms 5% of the total cost of gasification. This cost of pretreatment can be taken from the disposal fees that customers pay us and the revenue we obtain from selling syngas. again, which is a form of revenue that we do not get with either landfilling nor incineration. Additionally, this pretreatment cost has a significant potential to go down to eventual insignificance because of advances in molecular breakdown and gasification technologies. Now, on to the benefits, which you will find far outweigh the costs of the conversion to gasification. The first is efficiency. Waste is currently just that, waste. The best we could hope for it as of now is worm food, and the worst, chemical leachate that harms our citizens' food and water stores. Through this process, we are converting what customers pay us to take off their hands and adding a further level of profitability to it. Additionally, this syngas will work as a passive and reliable income source that could be further invested into different sectors. While the current opponent of syngas, natural gas, faces the inevitable end of fossil fuels, syngas's source is waste, and we won't be running out of that anytime soon. Further, we stand to receive federal grants to promote the use of this eco-friendly practice. Especially with the US rejoining the Paris Agreement, the government has committed to shift our economy away from fossil fuels and instead redirect it to climate-friendly alternatives. Your rebranding to WM reflects your intent to prize the principles of environmental sustainability, and this rebranding grants a market advantage and a greater ability to draw on local governments who carry similar goals. And your move to gasification would reflect your intention to follow through on your promises. Additionally, a methane tax routinely comes up in congressional discussion, of which WM landfilling would be at risk due to its immense production of methane. Conversion to gasification shows that WM recognizes the harms of landfilling and is actively working to change this. Again, an analysis of the limiting costs of gasification and landfilling lead to the conclusion that in the end, landfilling is a far more expensive technology. To start, let's analyze the limiting costs of starting the process of gasification. They are essentially equipment and treatment. Because the fuel of gasification is what customers pay us to dispose of, there will be no future costs to invest in acquiring more fuel, and the disposal fees that customers pay us can go toward investment into and maintenance of equipment. Further, this number only has potential to go down as scientific advances occur. And this is the same with waste treatment. As we discussed, the costs of waste treatment are far insignificant compared to that of equipment, and the costs of both of these processes only show signs of decreasing as we advance research into sustainable waste management. On the other hand, the limiting costs of landfills are not so easy to reconcile. As the name hints, the highest limiting costs of landfills relate to that of land itself. Landfills use up significantly high amounts of land. The average landfill is about 600 acres. To visualize this expanse, this is the amount of land composed by 450 football fields laid together. As land usage increases through infrastructure development and population growth, it will be harder and harder for you to find an expanse of land suitable. Not to mention, land is getting more expensive, and this is reflected in the cost of landfilling over time. While in 1985, it only cost $8 to landfill a ton of trash, this same ton of trash cost $50 to dispose of in 2017. Waste gasification provides an opportunity to divert waste from landfills. From $20 per acre in 1900 and $599 per acre in 1987, even agricultural land has increased in price to $1,050 per acre in 2000. It is not hard to see why the cost of landfilling has increased so dramatically, and it is only projected to go up from here. Additionally, landfills are traditionally and understandably located far from people, meaning far from cities and urban areas. However, this is a significant problem because these areas are the ones that arguably produce the most trash. However, gasification technologies use significantly less space, only about 50 acres compared to the average landfill of 600, and can be located close to urban areas inexpensively, thus reducing transportation technology. To conclude our discussion of finances, I would like to mention a study conducted by the Earth Engineering Center of Columbia University that concluded that if all municipal solid waste headed to landfills were able to be diverted to waste to energy facilities, enough electricity could be produced to power nearly 14 million households, or more than 12% of American households powered solely by garbage. The study also found that it could reduce greenhouse gas emissions by at least 123 millions of tons of carbon dioxide equivalents per year, an amount comparable to taking more than 23 million cars off our roads. I will now pass it over to Margarita, our Chief Legal Officer, who will discuss the legal implications of this transition.
The process of pyrolysis and gasification are not currently defined in the law. These processes have changed and improved over the years and now come in a variety of different configurations, such as high and low temperature gasification, plasma gasification, thermal and catalytic pyrolysis, and hydrocracking. Broadly speaking, pyrolysis is a non-combustive process, which involves decomposing feedstock under heat and low to no oxygen environments and produce tars, oils, particulate matter, and reduced sulfur and nitrogen compounds. In gasification, where one of the main differences is the presence of oxygen and nitrogen compounds, gasification has a lot of steam and oxygen under the high heat, or even in low temperature gasification occurs in several hundred degrees Celsius and produces, among other products, syngas, which has a variety of applications included in fuel. Historically speaking, waste conversion technologies such as pyrolysis and gasification have been regulated under a patchwork of Clean Air Act and remain at relatively low levels of commercial adoption. The creation of an appropriate and practical regulatory framework that targets pyrolysis and gasification will render them as viable investment options. The waste management industry's interest in chemical and plastics recycling is rapidly growing. EPA's recent steps to standardize regulations may assist in the development and adoption of chemical recycling and waste conversion technologies. The expectation is that reforming the regulatory landscape will help provide clarity in this emerging area. EPA announced an advanced notice of proposing rulemaking to assist in the potential development of regulations for pyrolysis and gasification units. Many industry observers consider this as a positive development, as the first step in standardizing and clarifying regulations. Other solid waste incineration plants have developed a simplification of pyrolysis regulations by removing the reference to pyrolysis from the definition of the municipal waste combustion units. This regulation would not place pyrolysis under stringent environmental regulation. The regulatory and legal challenges of plants utilizing pyrolysis and gasification technologies are not too cumbersome. These plants can be easily managed because it is possible to design them to be fully automated and equipped with remote control features. Effective and widespread adoption of pyrolysis and gasification may reduce the demand for virgin inputs in chemical manufacturing, and so they can also reduce emissions and environmental impacts. As public pressure mounts to eliminate the single use of plastics and increase recycling, clear regulation of pyrolysis and gasification will help with the industry adoption of such technologies. There currently exists a considerable amount of efficient technological solutions to resolve the problems in waste to energy conversion technologies. The rich environment of patent fillings indicates substantial innovative and creative technological developmental and progresses. A detailed statistical and technological analysis of patent documents related to biomass gasification reveals classifications based on the following technological attributes, such as the pre-treatment of feedstock, the feeding systems, capture and separation, control and diagnostics, finishing treatment, and primary processing, such as heating, the reactor type, exhaust reuse, glass cleaning, waste removal, and conversion of syngas. Since gasification process has such an extensive history, current efforts to develop waste management technology have not been done independently earlier. Therefore, it is important for there to be a collaboration of technology of patent rights and for other intellectual property rights. As technology is still under development, gasification relies upon a strong regulatory environment, including real-time environmental emission monitoring to ensure operational safety and compliance. Our Chief Ethical Officer, Yakin, will now talk about the ethical considerations.
There's 4 minutes remaining.
Thank you so much. Now, I will close the presentation by helping you understand how these pieces fit together into the ethics of WM. As the Chief Ethics Officer of Phoenix Group, from the beginning, I wanted to get to the bottom of UM's ethical system. A simple investigation showed me that WM sees ethics as a priority in business. This is what has set it apart from any competitor and what makes it a leader in the field. It has won prize after prize, and it has been recognized over and over for its ethics, which it takes as a source of its financial success. You said it best, success with integrity. That is what makes WM. As a company, WM understands that success in business arises from pure integrity. This integrity is recognized by consumers and is what allows WM to make money while helping society. Today, landfills represent an immense ethical problem for America and the world. In this map, you can see every single dot is at least 1 acre of land. The greater dots are almost 2,000 acres of land that are used only for landfills. This literally wasteful system requires too much care, too much land, too much money, and produces too little. Just look at the outrageous amount of landfills near densely populated areas such as California and the Northwest. Look how few of these dots are green, showing continuous reliance on landfills by Americans. To feed the world's growing population, a study of researchers at Stanford estimated that additional land greater than the state of Maryland will be required. This is highly possible if we move away from landfills under the lead of WM. With the increasing demand for affordable housing and sustainable agriculture, WM will become the leading company in financially viable sustainability. If it moves away from landfills towards fast gasification, a familiar company like WM that deals with these two issues, as well as waste management and energy production, will inevitably succeed in the world of business of today and tomorrow. We are advising you to license fast gasification from Sierra Energy, thus avoiding the increasing cost of landfilling, maintaining your marketing advantage, and solving more environmental issues all at once. Step by step, you can get ahead in the waste management industry of the future while making money today. WM cannot wait for another company to take its marketing advantage. More land, better communities, a more sustainable world. That is what fast gasification, our proposal, is all about. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, we now move to the question period. And we follow the Supreme Court model of asking our newest judge to go first. So Joe, what have you got for us?
Couple things. I'm gonna, in the financial discussion, I noticed that one of the benefits, I think, was governmental grants, if I'm not mistaken. I have some concerns that based on political climate, depending on which administration may be in charge, whether it's locally, if it's a local grant, or nationally, if it's a federal grant, that relying on that as an avenue for for making this technology a cheaper alternative. I have some concerns about whether changes in administration can lead to maybe losing some of these grants or tax credits or what have you. Have you given any thought to how political climate affects our ability to make this financially feasible?
That's a really great point to mention. I did mention it at the end there because although we should consider governmental grants in the financial section, it's not what we're relying on, only that we believe that with the way that the climate moving as it is, we hope that, especially considering the dire consequence we've already seen from the climate crisis, we believe that there's reason to see that the government would make this shift, especially with the Biden administration recently entering the US into the Paris Agreement again. I think that right now we are in the best political climate for such a shift. the US has shown that we are ready for us to consider this. We do have to consider the climate when making future energy decisions. We've been moving away from coal, and a couple of grants, NIH grants, have actually, I didn't want to lay out specifics because, again, with a company like WM, this is something that we would look more into, but a lot of grants are helping out scientific studies which are looking at gasification and whether America can see it as a long-term solution to, especially what I mentioned with, because we're already running out of fossil fuels to produce natural gas, we will need an alternative.
Oh,
Gotcha.
moreover, I wanted to follow up.
Oh, please, please. Yep.
In terms of political considerations, the plant that has already been built by the US Army in California received money from both the federal government during the Trump administration and the California Energy Commission. So we believe that shows that there is a commitment from both parties in America to move towards gasification if it benefits both business and the environment.
Rob,
Okay.
let's move to you and see if you have a good question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Team Phoenix. It's a fascinating subject and obviously very relevant. I'm curious about this. So, you know, I couldn't quite see you boil it down to the bone in terms of telling us waste management, whether we'd be engaging in a carbon neutral activity with gasification or if there would be effects to the environment. So I've done some reading and research on this, and I see conflicting scholarly insights. Some say that it's carbon neutral, and some say that the practice is as potentially detrimental as incinerating gas.
Before you team members respond to that, let me add to it because it's very close to the question that I contemplated. So maybe you can treat these at the same time. My question is most easily understood by asking, in this FASTOX process, what energy source do you use to get this material to 4,000 degrees? And what's the balance of the output against the input?
I can answer the question of what source. You're using actual waste. You remove everything that's non-combustible, meaning that you essentially can't blow it up, and you put it under conditions of high pressure and heat. So that is something that you do. Those are the conditions that you force the waste under to make the energy.
But you still have to have a fuel source for that high temperature. What fuel source do you use?
I'll take this one.
Electricity.
There is an initial, like that first time that it's used, it does have that initial cost of you need to provide the heat. After that, it has like a parasitic load of about 20%. The syngas that is produced then powers the plant continuously.
Okay,
so there was that first investment cost of actually heating that first time, and then the products power the plant itself.
let me say that back to you. You use approximately 20% of the energy output to support the combustion. Is that what you said?
Yes. Other gasification methods use about like 50% of the output, which is why they are less effective than FASTOX gasification.
Rob, you want to follow up?
So yeah, I think I'm just ultimately still wanting a clearer answer on whether or not we can expect this to be perceived as better for the environment. Because again, I'm reading reports that say that there's not an unequivocal certainty, there's not just a clear answer that this is better than incinerating. So what can you tell me that really sells me on the fact that gasification is better at generating electricity and having less of a detrimental impact on the environment?
Well, it has to do with the composition of the syngas. Syngas is like chemically composed of carbon monoxide and hydrogen. So you're not getting that like carbon dioxide being produced. So you're not getting those carbon dioxide emissions. It's being released as carbon monoxide, which is like syngas.
And additionally, WM has already recognized that using a gasification process that we call land to energy process can also help it, not only in getting energy, but also driving its fleet of all the trucks that it has and all the transportation infrastructure. And we know that right now with the process they have, not all the transportation infrastructure can be driven by the energy because we're losing 50% of the energy as it was stated in our presentation. With our process, we hope to gain more of that yield and be able to use it additionally for replacing fossil fuel usage in trucks and the rest of the company infrastructure, whether it's buildings as well.
Let me ask one more question for clarification. I think you tried to address this, but I'm not clear what the answer is. In the very first portion of the presentation, in fact, I think it might have been in the first slide, you presented that WM was going to not concentrate on short-term profits. Presumably what that means is they're going to concentrate on long-term profits. Has anybody considered the shareholders' view of that question?
Yes, we believe that we really wanted to drive home the point that this is not only a short-term, this is not only a long-term solution, but also is going to help in the short term as well, because WM is currently undergoing this process of marketing advantage of being a sustainable company, and it has created all these goals. It's going to have a harder time getting to those goals and remaining true to its standards with the process that it's running today, which is something that stakeholders would not want for the company to fail in meeting its own standards. And so what we're doing here is providing you with a better ability to reach those ideas, maintain your marketing advantage, which is what motivates governments to hire WM compared to other companies.
And I think
To add on to that,
sorry, just to mention this really quick, I do think that shareholders would be amenable to us making this shift because, again, if local governments see that we want the same things that they do, and not just to make money and destroying the environment that our citizens live in the process, more governments would be willing to hire us after seeing what we prioritize, which is also what they prioritize. I think this aligning of goals would help us make more profits in the long term. And I don't see how shareholders wouldn't like to see that.
Okay, now we move to the feedback portion. And feedback can be positive, it can be neutral, and it can be negative. And once again, I want to turn to Joe to see if you have any feedback for these folks.
Sure. Couple things. Well, to me, the most notable, which I liked at the end, was anytime you're trying to persuade somebody of something, I do think it's helpful to not have them be defensive. And I think what happened here is there was some slides at the end, maybe it was one slide towards the end, that was giving WM credit for all of the successes that it has had with some of its ethical processes. And so I thought that was a really nice touch to point that out. And as you lead us towards this idea that you had, I think that was a really nice touch. I think it's more persuasive as opposed to beating somebody up over what they're doing. So I did like that. Let's see. I think that was my favorite item. I may have another one if someone else wants to go ahead and take a turn. I'm going to just check my notes here. There was a couple other things I did like.
Rob, we pass it to you.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, just to add on to Joseph's point, don't be afraid to be human. This is a professional presentation. Obviously, you want to convey that from the outset, but you also want to be able to relate to your audience. So if you walk into a boardroom and you're a consulting company and you're trying to convince individuals that your plan is the right one for them, you want to somehow engender some kind of personal side. So you're communicating to them. So again, whether you tell a story or whether there's sort of a lighthearted lead in, I think that's really important. Joseph pointed to the comments at the end. I think those can be valuable at the beginning to set the table. I would have liked to have heard what some peer companies are doing, maybe at the local level. Waste management is something that is usually a hyper local industry where you see companies. Waste management is obviously a national company. You see it from coast to coast. And there are some national competitors. There's also some international precedents with gasification as well. Again, you don't have to take us down a path of in the weeds research, but it would have been nice to look at some comparable companies that have done this and done well. And you could have made reference to that in simple terms. And I think sort of that would have packed a more clear punch for us. On the feedback and question and answers, let's not have 3 or 4 answers for each question. What that tells the judges is that I have a better answer, I have a better answer, I have a better answer. One solid answer for each question is sufficient. But otherwise, great job. Thanks.
Okay. The feedback, I use a little different standard in evaluating your presentation, which I think it was pretty good because I get it. You explained it to me. I understand it. That's good. I'm now going to give you a little piece of advice for your future if you intend to make it by talking. Several of you talk too fast. You need to slow down. You need to concentrate. A very good technique for teaching yourself how to do that is to go to the store and buy some marbles. Remember marbles, the little glass balls? Put 2 of them in your mouth and try to talk. And practice that until your speech slows down. You'll find it works every time. And I thank you for your presentation and the judges for their participation. And unless the team has questions, we have reached the end.